there's a task sitting in front of you right now. It's not hard, it's not even long, but somehow you'd rather do almost anything else. You check your phone. You reorganize a drawer that didn't need it. You tell yourself you'll start in 5 minutes. But the real reason you're avoiding it is far stranger than you're lazy. Your brain isn't broken. It's running a very old program, and that task you're avoiding just triggered it. Think about what procrastination actually feels like from the inside. You know the deadline. You know the cost of waiting. You can practically see the future version of yourself, stressed out at midnight, regretting every wasted hour. And yet, none of that knowledge moves you. You sit there anyway, scrolling, waiting, doing nothing. If procrastination were simply about laziness, this wouldn't make sense. Lazy people don't feel guilty. Lazy people don't lie awake calculating exactly how much time they wasted. The procrastinator does both, which means something else is happening, something underneath the behavior you can see. Dr. Piers Steele, a researcher who has spent decades studying procrastination, found something important. Procrastination isn't a failure of time management. It's a failure of emotion management. The task itself isn't really the problem. The feeling the task produces is the problem. And your brain, in this moment, is built to chase relief from bad feelings faster than it chases long-term rewards. So what feeling does a delayed task usually produce? Often it's not boredom, it's threat. A blank document, an overdue email, a difficult conversation. Each one carries a small risk. The risk of doing it wrong. The risk of being judged. The risk of discovering you're not as capable as you hoped. Your brain doesn't experience this as a task. It experiences it as a low-grade danger signal. And danger signals don't ask for patience. They ask for escape. This is where an older part of your brain steps in. The limbic system, the part responsible for emotional reactions, processes threats far faster than the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for planning and long-term reasoning. Neuroscientist Tim Pitchell, who has researched procrastination extensively, describes this as a kind of internal tug-of-war. Your prefrontal cortex knows the deadline matters. Your limbic system just wants the discomfort to stop right now. And in that contest, speed usually wins over wisdom. So you open your phone instead. Not because the phone is more important, because it's immediate. It offers relief in under a second, while the task offers relief only after a long, uncertain effort. Your brain isn't choosing entertainment over responsibility. It's choosing certainty over uncertainty. A small guaranteed reward over a delayed, effortful one. This explains something curious about procrastination. It rarely shows up evenly. You don't procrastinate on everything. You procrastinate on the things that feel emotionally loaded. The report that might reveal you don't fully understand the topic. The phone call that might lead to conflict. The workout that reminds you how out of shape you've become. These aren't random delays. They're avoidance of a specific feeling that task keeps producing. And here's where it gets stranger. The longer you avoid the task, the heavier that feeling becomes. Because avoidance doesn't just delay the work, it reinforces the threat. Each time you turn away from the task, your brain quietly learns a lesson. This thing causes discomfort, and turning away worked to relieve it. So next time the discomfort appears, turning away feels even more automatic. You're not just procrastinating on the task anymore. You're strengthening a habit loop that makes future procrastination more likely. This is why procrastination so often spirals instead of staying still. It's not just one delay, it's a feedback system slowly training itself. But here's the twist most people don't expect. Procrastination isn't actually about poor discipline at all. Research from psychologist Fuchsia Sirois has linked procrastination closely to self-compassion, or more specifically, the lack of it. People who procrastinate more tend to be harsher with themselves afterward, more self-critical, more shame-driven. And ironically, that shame doesn't fix the behavior, it deepens it. Because shame itself is an uncomfortable feeling, and your brain responds to uncomfortable feelings the same way it always does, by looking for the fastest possible escape. Which means the guilt you feel for procrastinating can actually fuel more procrastination. This reframes the whole problem. Procrastination isn't a war between a good you who wants to work and a bad you who wants to avoid it. It's a single system trying to regulate an uncomfortable emotional state using the only tools it currently has. And right now, those tools are avoidance and self-criticism, two strategies that feel protective in the moment but quietly make things worse over time. So what actually helps? Not motivation. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are unreliable narrators when there's discomfort involved. What helps is lowering the emotional stakes of starting. Sirois' research, along with related work on task initiation, points to something almost embarrassingly small. The goal isn't to finish the task. The goal is to reduce the size of the very first step until it's no longer threatening enough to trigger avoidance. Not write the report. Open the document. Not have the hard conversation. Send one sentence. Not start the workout. Put on the shoes. Each of these steps is small enough that your limbic system doesn't register it as a threat worth escaping. And once you're moving, even slightly, the emotional barrier that was blocking you tends to lower on its own. This is also why simply telling yourself to just do it rarely works. It treats the problem as a willpower shortage when it's actually an emotional threshold. You're not lacking discipline. You're standing in front of a doorway that feels higher than it actually is, and bracing yourself to leap over it instead of just stepping through. There's a deeper reason this threshold exists at all. For most of human history, uncertainty wasn't an abstract inconvenience. It was genuinely dangerous. An unfamiliar plant might be food, or it might be poison. An unfamiliar path might lead to water, or it might lead somewhere far worse. Brains that hesitated in the face of ambiguous risk tended to survive longer than brains that charged ahead without caution. So hesitation became a built-in feature, not a bug. The emotional break you feel before an uncertain task is the same break your ancestors felt before an uncertain trail. The problem is that this break doesn't know the difference between this could kill me and this could embarrass me in an email. It applies roughly the same caution to both, because for almost all of human history, those two categories didn't really need to be told apart. Physical danger and social danger were often the same thing. Being excluded from your group because you failed at something public could be just as costly over time as a physical threat. So the brain treats modern social and professional risk with leftover machinery built for survival-level stakes, even when the actual cost of failure is mild. This is part of why procrastination feels so disproportionate from the outside looking in. Friends and colleagues see a simple email. Your nervous system, underneath conscious awareness, is running a threat assessment process that evolved for circumstances with far higher stakes. You're not overreacting on purpose. You're running ancient software on a modern problem, and the software hasn't been updated to know the difference. Once you see it this way, the task in front of you stops looking like a referendum on your worth. It starts looking like exactly what it is, a trigger for an old alarm system that's slightly miscalibrated for the world you actually live in. And maybe this is the real shift. procrastination was never proof that something is wrong with your character. It's proof that your brain is doing exactly what brains have always done, protecting you from discomfort as efficiently as possible. The mechanism isn't broken. It's just aimed at short-term relief in a world that increasingly rewards long-term effort. This also explains why procrastination often gets worse, not better, the more important a task becomes. A trivial errand rarely triggers much avoidance because there's little emotional weight attached to getting it wrong. But a task tied to your identity, your competence, or how others will judge you carries a much heavier emotional signature. The bigger the task feels in terms of what it says about you, the louder the old alarm rings, and the more elaborate your avoidance becomes to escape it. This is why procrastination on a project you actually care about, or a conversation with someone whose opinion matters to you, often feels so much stronger than procrastination on something routine, like replying to an ordinary email. It was never really about the size of the task. It was about the size of the feeling the task represents. There's another layer to this that rarely gets mentioned. Modern environments are unusually good at making the escape option more available than at any point in human history. Your ancestor avoiding an uncomfortable task had genuinely limited alternatives. There was no infinite scroll waiting nearby, no endless supply of bite-sized distractions engineered to deliver relief in under a second. If they avoided the hard task, they were often left with boredom, which, as it turns out, eventually pushes a person back toward action. You don't have that problem anymore. Or rather, you have too many solutions to it. Every moment of discomfort now has a frictionless escape route sitting within arm's reach. This doesn't mean you're weaker than previous generations. It means you're running an old avoidance system inside an environment specifically engineered to reward avoidance more efficiently than it's ever been rewarded before. The mechanism hasn't changed. The opportunities to trigger it have multiplied. Understanding this doesn't make the task disappear, but it does change what you're actually negotiating with. You're not negotiating with laziness. You're negotiating with a very old, very protective system that's misreading a low-stakes task as something worth bracing against. And once you know that, the goal stops being force yourself through sheer willpower and starts being something more specific. Lower the perceived stakes enough that the system stops sounding the alarm in the first place. That's a different kind of solution than most people reach for. It's not louder motivation. It's a quieter threshold. So the next time you find yourself staring at a task you know you should start and somehow can't, try noticing what's actually happening underneath it. Not laziness, not failure, just an old part of your brain quietly trying to keep you safe from a feeling it hasn't learned to tolerate yet. There's a task sitting in front of you right now. It's not hard. It's not even long. And maybe the way through it was never about pushing harder. Maybe it was about making the first step small enough that the oldest part of your brain finally lets you walk through the door.